Hello friends, welcome back to the ninth session in the natural language processing playlist, and in this session we are going to learn something very interesting and intuitive as well. We are going to learn about the morphology and morphemes. What is this? Why do we need to know this? All these will be answered while we proceed along with the session. This session is all about the words, the pronunciation, the language usage and more than that. So we are taking English language as the example, as the consideration for this entire session, and whatever we talk is regarding is with respect to English. We'll get into the session right away. What is morphology? The dictionary has got a very clear definition for it. Dictionary says morphology is study of words. Morphology is all about how words are formed. Morphology is about exploring the relationship for a current word with another word. It analyzes the structure of the words. It analyzes the parts of the words. It can tell you what is the stem, what is the root, what can be the prefix, what can be the suffix, how do we derive new words out of others. All these are together called as morphology. It's about study of words. That's in a single word that we can convey. Now what is morphemes? Morphology is all about studying morphemes. That morphemes is the smallest meaning unit which constitute a bigger word. It is the smallest unit that constitutes a bigger word in precise, if you convey it that way. Now, can we call cats? Cats is the simplest example that I'm going to take right now. What is cats? This cats has got two morphemes. One is cat and another one is yes. This cat and s, two morphemes together gets a word. The study of understanding this cat and this yes is called as morphology. These two morphemes, cat and yes, are analyzed. We will go deeper into what is this, why do we have this, how this can be helpful in framing other sentences, other words. That is called morphology. So these cats or dogs are the typical example that people will take when they explain you what is morphology and what are morphemes. Morphemes are nothing but cat and yes here in the example cats that we have taken. Now, I'm going to take a couple of more examples that are a bit complicated right now, but still it will be easy for you to understand. One morpheme, nation. This is one morpheme which you cannot divide any further. Nation cannot be made any further, you cannot break it into two or three ops again. It's not going to be possible. Now I'm going to make it national. Now if you see that, I can break it into two morphemes here. One is nation and another one is al. Nation, al. So this is national. This is two morphemes. Now I go with three morphemes. A nationalize, a nation, al, ice. These are three morphemes, three independent morphemes there which are connected together to get the word called as nationalize. Now four morphemes, denationalize, D, nation, al, ice. That's it. We have started with one morpheme, we went to two morphemes, we then constructed three, then finally four. So what do you understand out of this? Morphemes are nothing but the smallest of units which constitute, which help in bringing up a larger word, right? There are some ground rules that you need to follow and understand when you go with morphemes. What is that? First thing you need to understand is morpheme is the smallest unit of word. Multiple morphemes can come together to form a word. This is the first rule that you need to understand. And morphemes cannot be broken further. For example, al cannot be broken further. A nation cannot be broken further. If you break, the meaning would be really disastrous. You cannot have anything over there. It won't be useful. It is typically useless. So these are the two very important points that you need to understand. Now I'm giving you an assignment. I have got five words here: unappear, impossible, intolerant, incorrigible, incurable, and I want you to split and find out how many morphemes are there in each of these five. If you can type it up in the comment section, I'll be able to tell you if you are right. If you are not able to do it, I can do it in a couple of days time frame. So I request the viewers to probably type it up in the comment section and I can evaluate it and I can get you the answers in a couple of days. Right. The next thing is called allomorphs. What is it? Very simple. It is the variant. It is a variant. I have something. I now have a variant of it. That's it. The term allomorph explains the comprehension of the phonological variations for specific morphemes. Sir, what do you mean by that, sir? Very simple. I have a morpheme, I have another variant of it, and this is called allomorph. But the variant cannot be used to replace the original morpheme. They will have totally different meaning, and that's what allomorphs are all about. It is like a duplicate. It looks like a variant. It looks like a duplicate, but it cannot really go ahead and replace the original content. We'll go with a couple of examples here so that you can understand this clearly, and this is very important. assert and assertion. I just added ION here. This is a variant actually, but do they convey the same meaning? No. Electric and electricity, do they convey the same meaning? I just added ITY there. Impress and impression, both are definitely different. So, but it looks like a variant. Include, inclusive, exclude, exclusive. These are the simple examples for allomorphs which can tell you that we can have variant of the same word which may look like, which may sound like the previous one, but they convey totally different meanings, which means that you cannot use B in the place of A. They may look like, they may look alike, and they may look very similar, they may pronounce even similar, but they cannot be used one for another. So that's the most important point. Now, we are going to the next one, which is called bounded morpheme. Bounded morphemes are not words by itself. You cannot qualify them as words, but it carries a lot of value when you align it with another word. For example, when I add something to something else, it becomes more meaningful. I have something, that something has got no respect now, but when I combine it with something else, it gains respect. For example, walks. We take an example of walks right now. This S in walks is a bounded morpheme. What do you mean by that? This S alone will not have anything special. It doesn't convey any special meaning. But when you add it to walk, it becomes walks. When you add it to cat, it becomes cats. When ly is added in deadly, it is meaningful, but just ly alone is not meaningful. Ly in hardly, re in replay. Just if I say re, it is not going to be helpful. But when I call it replay, it is going to be very helpful. Re in repay, just re alone is not going to be helpful here, but re in repay is very meaningful. So these kind of stuff where when we add these meaningless or the so-called useless words, useless characters, when it is combined with something very meaningful, it gets you together a very good word. So that's what is called bounded morpheme, and I have got a couple of more examples. Er in walker, er in cheaper, un in unable, im in impossible, im in improbable, en in brighten, en in titan. So all these are simple examples for bounded morphemes. This is a very important question when it comes to even exam point of view or interview point of view. They may ask you, can you give me an example of bounded morpheme? So you need to pick up one of these and you can explain why they are qualified as bounded morpheme. Now, the next one is pretty interesting. Free morpheme. What is it? These guys are really strong. Free morphemes are standalone, which means they qualify by itself as a word and strongly they can stand alone by conveying a meaning. It is not bounded morpheme. It is not required to connect it to anything else further to get a meaning for it. It by itself is very strong and it conveys a meaning. Some simple example for free morphemes are girl, cat, little, book, table, bag. All these are the bounded morpheme, are free morphemes, and the biggest factor or biggest advantage of free morphemes is that these free morphemes go well along with, they get well along with other morphemes as well, and this can get you a new word. For example, girl goes along with yes, girls. Cat go well along with yes, cats. Dogs, books, bagged, tables. So this is possible, but it is not necessary that you need to add another morpheme to it to get it meaningful. It by itself is very solid. It conveys a meaning by itself, and that's why we call it free morphemes. Now, the very important term in the entire session is here, the stem and affixes. What is it? We have two fundamental terms that we need to know. The first one is stem and the second one is affixes. Stems are nothing but the roots. Okay, this stem is the one that is going to convey the core meaning of the word. This stem is the core. This is the heart, liver, kidney, you call it anything. That's going to be the very vital part of the word. Stem is the most prominent section of a word. Now affixes, it is small inclusion. It can be either in the front or in the back or in the center. So I am going to add something to the word, but they are affixes and they are not the core modules. They are not the core section that we need to pay attention to. They are additions, which means you can either add it to the front or to the last section of the word or in between. We are going to see some examples for this, which will help you understand very clearly what is an affix and how do we use it. There are some types of affixes like prefix, suffix, infix and circumfixes. There are 4 types actually. So we are going to go with one by one with a simple example that will help you in understanding things clearly. First one is prefix. What is pre? Pre means before. Prefixes are nothing but the part of a word that comes at the beginning of the stem or root. Stem and root are interchangeable. I can use them the way I want. I can call it stem or I can call it root. Don't worry about it. Now when I add something to a word before it, I call it prefix. For an example, I can give you a simple example here. Impossible, here the im is a prefix. reply, repay, reply, all these, the re will be a prefix. Unhappy, un is a prefix. Confirm, compress, all these are simple examples for prefixes. Im, re, com, con, un, anti, all these are the examples of prefixes. Now when prefix is said this way, suffix is easy to understand. Now what is it? Very simple. You kept it before the stem for the prefix. Now you keep it after the stem at the end. When you keep it, that becomes suffix. A suffix is nothing but a part of the word that comes at the end. For example, tion, ity, ing are the simple suffixes that we can use. Passion, ambition, evolution, unity, community, walking, dying. All these are simple examples where the last 3 or 2 characters, whatever I added, is going to be called as the suffix. In walking, ing is called suffix. In dying, ing is called suffix. Unity, ity. Evolution, tyon. So all these are the suffixes that will add a lot of value to the particular word. Now what is prefix? You add it before. What is suffix? You add it at the end of it. Now what is infix? Right. The English language normally does not have a lot of value for infixes. You do not have many examples as well. I searched a lot in the internet as well. So you do not find a lot of examples for infixes because this is not as frequently used as prefix or suffix. So this is kind of ignored, but we need to know what is infix. So we are taking some special words where we can add plural forms to it and we call it infix. So we have got some hardly available, very few words are available in this. So passerby, the passerby with infix s becomes passersby. Passerby with infix s becomes passersby. Similarly, spoonful with an s become spoonsful. This is the simplest example that we could cite in many resources, which is called as infix. Infix is normally not paid so much of attention, but we need to know what is it. That's the reason I discussed this. Now we'll go to circumfixes. What is it? I need to use both prefix and suffix together here. I mean, I will add something to the beginning, something to the end, and I call it circumfix. What is an example? A light is there, before that I will add n, and after that I will add en. So that is called enlighten. Bold is there, I'll add em before it and en after it, and I call it embolden. So these are the simplest examples that you can understand how does circumfix work. So what are the things we have seen? We have seen 4 types of affixes. The first one is prefix, which is nothing but at the beginning. The second one is suffix, which is nothing but at the end. The third one is infix, that's at the center. That's the s addition for a spoonful example that I told you. Then I come to circumfix, where we have got the words, the word aligned, added with prefix and suffix properly, both at the end and the beginning. That is a very important stuff that we. Well, it's the time for us to go to the next topic, which is equally important, and we will understand things in much more easier way as well. Now, the next discussion or the next topic is on the content and the functional morphemes. What is it? Very simple. The content morphemes express a concrete meaning or a content, while the functional morphemes have more of a grammatical role. For example, the fast, the sad are content morphemes. They have a very strong content out there which convey a solid meaning, which convey a solid content over there. That's why we call it content morphemes. But the functional morphemes are like the, can, must, might, will, this, on, with, to. All these might not convey a solid meaning to it, and we call it functional morphemes. It is more of grammatical value add to the word that you have, instead of the word by itself is conveying something solid. So that's the simplest example that I told you, the fast and the sad. So I'm going to give you more example as well on this, which will help you. The simplest example for the content morphemes could be the computer, board, peace, school, walk, run, clean, quick, rapid, enormous. All these are examples here. It can be nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, anything, but that should convey a very solid meaning, which means a concrete meaning should be conveyed by these words. Function words can be the, and, these are articles. Auxiliaries, it can be can, must, might, will. Demonstratives, this, these, that, those. Quantifiers, many, few, little, some. Prepositions, on, with, to, from. Pronouns, he, she, they, we. All these come under functional morphemes. What do you mean by that? They are grammatical value add. They do not convey anything solid like what the content words do. Right. We'll get into the next one. we are going to combine morphemes to words. There are four important terms or methods which are very much important actually to be learned, and we are going to go by that right now. The first one is inflection, second one is derivational, third one is compounding, the fourth one is cliticization. So we are going to go with all these four clearly one after another, and that will help us in understanding things better. We will first go with inflection. What is inflection? Very simple. It is going to create a new form of the same word through some inflectional affixes being added. What are the simple examples? I will add an S, which is nothing but a plural form, and I can create a new word out of it. Sachin has got two bats. This bat has now become bats, and this is the simple example for inflection. Apostrophe S, possessive. When you call this way, I can say this with a simple example. Sachin's batting is superb. Sachin's. This kind of the bats or some more example can be given here with the apostrophe S. And another factor, another aspect of it or another type of it is ER. ER is for comparison. Sachin is a better batter than Lara. Batter. You can see that he's a better batter than Lara. So we have got a new word there. EST, superlative. So this is going to convey the superlative fact of it. Sachin scored the fastest 100. EST. The fastest 100 in ODI. Hyphen S, which is nothing but the third person singular aspect of it. Sachin plays cricket in the ground. I am telling that Sachin plays cricket in the ground. It is a third person singular. So plays. He plays cricket in the ground. Now the next one, hyphen ed, which is nothing but the past tense. Sachin played like god of cricket yesterday. Played. It is yesterday. So this is an inflection. I added ed to a particular word that conveys that this has happened in the past, which is nothing but a yesterday. Now the next one, ing, which is progressive, which keeps on happening. So what is the example here? Sachin is playing like an unplayable or unstoppable innings right now. He is right now playing. That ing says that he is playing right now unstoppable. Hyphen en, which is nothing but past participle. Sachin has taken MR of bat for practice. Taken. He has taken MR of bat for practice. So all these are the inflection examples that we can understand. The next one is very important. Derivational morphemes. What is it, sir? I can add some small components to it, a small change to derive a new word which is going to convey a totally different meaning. This is derivational. I get a new word out of an already existing word, but totally a different meaning will be obtained if I make small changes. If I add IC to alcohol, it becomes alcoholic. If I add ANCE to clear, it becomes clearance. If I add LY, love becomes lovely. Active becomes activity by adding ITY. Walk becomes walkable by adding ABLE. Hard becomes hardship. Do becomes redo. Cover becomes recover. Finite becomes infinite. And if you see, alcohol and alcoholic are not the same. Clear and clearance are not the same. Love and lovely are different. Active and activity are entirely different. Walk, walkable, different. Hard, hardship, different. Do, redo, different. Cover, recover, different. If you see this, if you derive something out of something by adding small affixes or prefixes to it, suffix or prefix to it, that becomes derivational morphemes. The entire meaning is different. So I made a new word out of something which is already available, and that's called derivational morpheme. Now what is compounding? This is a real cool stuff. Compounding means combining. Combining two entire words on its own, the word will have some meaning. I have two different words. For example, base plus ball. Both are already meaningful. They both are already good words out there. So when I combine these together, what I get baseball. Buy plus out, buy out. Spy plus wear, spyware. Ring plus tone, ringtone. Turn plus around, turn around. Make plus up, make up. Over plus rating, over rating. Free plus fall, free fall. Black plus board, blackboard. This is the simplest example that I can cite you. This gets a new word out of the previously available two distinct words which by itself are very meaningful. We are still combining them to get a new word out of it. The next one is very important. We have been using this actually quite frequently. Am can be represented by apostrophe M. You can see that here. This M is representing as a clitic for am. This RE is representing as a clitic for ARE. So I have got an example here. Now I have an orange can be represented as I apostrophe like this. I apostrophe have BE and orange. This conveys I have an orange. They are there. They are there. This is just RE. I am tired. I am M alone specifies that here. I will do it. Just double L will convey it as will. Now, this is nothing but syntactically it is a word, it is reduced, but a clitic gets meaning only when it is attached to some other word. For example, I cannot keep VE alone separately other than combining it to I have or we have. I need another word to cling on to it. Only then this particular clitic will become meaningful. This clitic VE or M or RE or S or double L will not be meaningful when they are standalone. Actually, they cannot stand alone. That's the point. So, clitics is the next part of it that we need to understand. We have been using it for a long time. It's some value. It has some value is what is presented at it's some value. It actually says that it has some value. They would something for you. They had something for you. This D says that I would give you money. So all these are called clitics, and this is very important for you to understand. Now we are getting into the final stretch of the session. I understand that this is a longer session, but still this is required. So we have got concatenation, reduplication, suppletion, and morphological internal changes. So what are these? Very simple. The first one is concatenation. Concatenation is all about combining. Concatenate, add, combine. I am going to combine two morphemes, but this is not like what we have done in, you can see here we have used compounding where we have combined two different words which are distinct and which had meaning by itself. I am not going to do that here. Instead, we can see that it is all about morphological derivation here. It is not about combining two different words which had meaning, which are by themselves two stems. But here if you see, M power, EM plus power is M power, IM plus possible impossible, IM plus probable improbable. This is concatenation. So you understand, right? IM does not have any specific meaning by itself, but when you combine them together, you get a meaning out, and this is called as concatenation. This is different from compounding. Understand that point. When you are concatenating, you need to understand one thing. The entire pronunciation will be changed. The pronunciation gets changed. Shoe plus S become shoes. When you call it shoes, it is Z in the end of it when you pronounce it instead of S. Shoes, if you see that here. Happy plus ER, when you write it, you cannot write it as HAPPYER. It has to be HAPPIER. So there is a change. This phonological changes and the pronunciation changes are very important for somebody to observe when you go with concatenation. Well, we'll go with reduplication. What is reduplication? Very simple. I am going to duplicate some words repeatedly. It is repetition of the sounds. Example, tum-tum, pee-pee, boo-boo, blah-blah, bye-bye. All these are simple examples. There are three types of reduplications. One is exact, second one is rhyming, third one is ablat. Exact is nothing but the first half will be exactly similar to the second half. Bye-bye, blah-blah. Rhyming is nothing but the first half would rhyme similar to the second half, but they are not the same. Nitty-gritty, chick-flick. And the last one is nothing but with a vowel shift. A ding-dong, flip-flop. They are not the same, just the vowels have shifted the places. So that's called the reduplication, and we have three types of it, and I discussed those three types here. Suppletion. This is very important to understand. In childhood, when we started learning English, if we wanted to learn, or if we are asked to learn the present tense, past tense, and the future tense, if the words are similar, it will be very easy for us. But if the words are like go, went, gone, go and went are not connected that much actually. When we learn it, it will be a lot of difficulty there. Good, better, best, all these three are not connected. Good is no way connected to better, better is no way connected to best for us, and bad, worse, worst. This is again tough for us. Being a child or being a new learner of a particular language, it will be very difficult for us, and this aspect of disconnect or dissimilarity or irregular relationship is called suppletion. This is a very important term, remember it. Now, the final one, the morpheme internal changes. What is it, sir? Very simple. Sing becomes sang, man becomes men, wear becomes or, drive becomes drove, eat becomes ate. This is called internal morpheme changes. Small changes internally will get you another form of it. Right, the last topic to be discussed. Compounding, word formation, compounding, acronyms, blending, clipping. We have already seen the compounding. Now acronym is the one that we need to start with right now. ISRO, what is it? It is an abbreviation formed from the initial letters of other words. ISRO is nothing but Indian Space Research Organization. So I took the first letters of all those and I named it as ISRO. NASA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration. First letters. OMG, oh my god. A laser, light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. Radar, radio detection and ranging. Sonar, sound navigation and ranging. All these are nothing but the acronyms of another very longer word or longer representation which has been shrinked to a smaller one. That is called acronym. Blending, what is it? I combine two words, part of two words. I take something from the first word, something from the second word, I combine them together, and that's called blending. Example, chill, relax gets you chillax. Breakfast, lunch gets you brunch. Motor, hotel gets motel. Bombay, Hollywood, Bollywood. Biology, electronic, bionic. This is a simple example that I can cite. Now clipping. What is clipping? I have a longer word, a larger word. That word can be represented with a smaller one. Refrigerator. Most of us do not call it refrigerator. We call it fridge. Influenza. We never know what is it. We call only flu. Advertisement. Ad. Doctor. DR. Examination. Exam. Mathematics. Max. Automobile. Auto. We stripped it for our comfort, and this is called clipping. I hope the session was useful. Though it was longer, this is going to play a lot of importance. This has a lot of importance in the NLP stuff we are going to learn and do in future. So please pay attention to this session, and if you have any queries, please come back to me in the comment section. Thank you.